Hello and welcome to the Paul Weller Fan Podcast. I'm Dan Jennings, and on this episode, I'm joined by photographer and filmmaker Julian Broad. This man has established a reputation as the go-to photographer for editorial and commercial. His UK clients include Vogue, GQ, Esquire, The Telegraph magazine. You name them, he's taken their picture. And on this episode of the podcast, we hear about his connections with Paul Weller. From the early solo years, plus album covers for Heliocentric in 2000, Sonik Kicks in 2012, the inlay for Saturns Pattern in 2015. And something very, very special that we have just announced in the past week or so. So we're going to talk about that as well. Let's get into it. Julian Broad, thank you for joining me.
My absolute pleasure, Dan.
Lovely to see you. And we're going to talk about some pretty cool, iconic images of Mr. Weller over the years. And this is solo career. I'm really excited to talk to you about, well, I only want to talk about one image in particular because there's a very selfish reason for this, but we'll hold that off until the end of this podcast chat and we'll bring that in later on. A little tease for everybody listening. One particular image and you'll find out why, all right? Yeah, exactly. But first of all, when was your discovery of Paul Weller? Would it have been the Jam, the Style Council? Were you a fan?
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, it was the Jam. When we first got to meet and I first got to photograph him, it was a big moment for me because I was a big fan.
And how do you, I mean, you've dealt with so many stars and photographed so many stars from all kinds of things, not just the world of music, fashion, all sorts, right? How do you deal with that when you get a bit starstruck? Is it just a focus on the job?
It doesn't happen. You're right, actually. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but there are certain individuals who have a great resonance in your life, and Paul absolutely is one of them. It was fantastic to photograph him and meet him for the first time. Yeah, I remember it very clearly. It was a studio in Old Street called Pear Tree Street Studios, owned by Metro. Yeah, and it was for German Max, if I recall.
And this is very early solo career. So he's just maybe off the back of that first album.
Yes.
Still finding his feet in a way as a solo artist.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was, I think it was all very new to him around that time. I think Nick Knight did the sleeve, which is a really lovely sleeve. I keep on thinking I did the press for it. I didn't do the press for it. I did that shoot with Amika and that's how we first met. And that subsequently led on to, numerous other shoots with him. I certainly got the impression that he was finding his feet in solo world. Yeah, definitely. But, enjoying it. And it was all there, huge expectancy from everybody. And it was a massive moment, huge. And then having this icon approach you, walk over to you and shake your hand was like, sort of, special.
And also this is a fella who is very image conscious, right? He's always liked style and fashion and things like that. Yeah. And we'll talk about this as we go through the shoots. But there's also so many great photos of Weller. There aren't many where he looks duff. I think I question maybe the peroxide hair in the Style Council days and the fluorescent shorts of the house days of the Style Council. But otherwise, he looks cool. You don't want to be the photographer who messes it up, do you?
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, he's been photographed so much over the years, and there's been so many fantastic pictures of him, obviously during the Jam and Style Council, and then into his solo career. I mean, he's really great at being photographed. I don't believe it's his favorite thing, the process. I don't get that sense, but all his references, and I mean, he's very visually driven. All his references are really spot on. There's one picture one of my favorite pictures of him actually was taken by Steve Pike. And I don't know what the setup was, but it's like a real snap. And was it Jam or Style Council? He's wearing a long coat and there's a sort of group of people in front of it's almost like it might be a pub or something. It's like a snap. Steve Pike shot it. It's a great picture.
All the kids, see, I've seen it. Yeah, it's all the kids in the park. I must be trying to track him down.
Yeah, I mean, seeing all those, I was so familiar with all those images of the Jam. Obviously, not so much the solo stuff because that had just started, but it was a big, it was pressure, but it was, I felt it, but we did well. It was shot on an 8x10 camera, which is a huge, big wooden plate camera that you go under a cloth. So the negatives are 8x10 inches. Huge, great thing. It seems absurd to be sort of, you look at it now and think you're going to go and take someone's portrait like that. But that black and white picture which I love. And it was taken on that. Also, it's a great camera because it slowed everything down a bit and he can sort of bob around a little bit. Everybody has to be quite still So it was good. It worked. It worked.
You obviously have that connection because when we get round to Heliocentric, this is his album in 2000, the album cover. And actually there are a few album covers from there on or insides and stuff like that. So, which is a different pressure, right? That thing's going to live on forevermore as a piece of art, as an album, but also your image on the front. So do you feel that pressure in that way?
I mean, yes, you do, I guess. I mean, I think by that point we'd reached a really good friendship, working relationship. So I felt relaxed and it was very collaborative. It was very collaborative. Well, you always feel a pressure in anything you do. I didn't feel it unduly. It was exciting. The process was exciting. And I was obviously thrilled to be asked to do the sleeves that I've done and the work with him that I've done with him over the years, yeah.
Bill Smith, the creator of so many of those iconic Jam sleeves, talks about wanting to hear the music when he was about to design a sleeve and work with the photographers on the images and stuff. So going through that period, and this is, we've had, Paul's had massive success again. We should say this in terms of he's back on top, Stanley Road, Heavy Soul. You're connecting during that time, are you?
Oh yeah, we've always, since the advent of mobile phones, pretty much, we keep in touch. We text each other every now and again. So yeah, so all through that period. I mean, what I've always appreciated with Paul as well is we've done a lot over the years. I've also always appreciated and respected his decisions to work with who he chooses to work with, like working with Peter Blake and, whoever. I think it's great and it keeps everything really fresh. And there's a danger of just like, well, this works, so just keep doing it. That can create a staleness. So I have huge respect for him. It speaks volumes about how he operates as a musician and how he keeps his sonic world fresh is by just, keeping it rolling along. Having said that, he's also incredibly loyal to people. But if you're not doing something with him for a while, you don't take it personally. You have a complete understanding that he's looking at things in a slightly different way. And for that bit, it doesn't involve you, whatever. And he's, like I say, Peter Blake and all the other people that he's worked with, super amazing. Really amazing, actually. There's very few artists that have been that explorative, I don't think, with their sleeves and their work. He thinks about it. It's good. Yeah,
not everybody's thinking that way, are they? With the same care and attention of the design and what's going on that cover that's going to live on,
He's gone through over the years, obviously there's been various labels and he's been with different labels and, and with that, the advent of, things that I'm not included in necessarily, but, with the marketing people and the rest of it, they'll all have something to say and offer about how they think it should be, how they think things should be. But I think he's always managed to keep his integrity about how he wants it to be. So anything that I see of his, you think, well, he's given that the nod. That's 100%. He hasn't been bypassed on any of those steps. So it's great. No, he's lovely to work with. Any of my team that have been involved in shoots with him over the years have incredibly fond memories of, being with him on those days. So it was great. Yeah.
So I mentioned Bill Smith wanting to hear the music. Would that be your approach, a photo shoot for an album cover? You want to hear the song? I mean, as a fan, we want to hear the songs first if you can, right?
To a degree. I mean, I suppose the first one was, the first time we shot, in my mind, I think we probably had the Jam on a set or not. I think we made sure we didn't have it on when we walked in because that would have not been cool. I think we definitely had it. I mean, that energy from the Jam was going into that day. I can't remember what music we played. It wouldn't have been the Jam in his presence necessarily, but it's the dude that was that was in the Jam, and everything that goes with that. And for me, the Jam was about a fantastic energy and that strength and that drive and forward motion. So that sort of drove the day. It's always lovely to hear, and I really appreciate hearing the music. I mean, probably Sonik Kicks, we had it because we did a video, so we would have had to have it. I don't recall having heard them on the days that we were shooting, I don't think. But I would understand that as if you were designing the sleeve and you're putting all that imagery together, I can completely understand how that would work and how you'd want to have that rolling around your head while you're laying out pictures and creating the artwork. Yeah, I could see that. So if I was designing the sleeve, then I'd definitely be having that going on. Yeah.
Talk to me about the Heliocentric shoot. This was the cover for the album in 2000.
Was it really? Yeah. Heliocentric was 2000.
Which is mad, isn't it?
Really?
Again, looking good. I don't know if he almost looks like the same shirt from that first album cover that Nick did. The nice frilly shirt.
I mean, he rang me. We talked on the phone. I don't think we met up before. We shot it in a studio in London Bridge that was owned by a fellow photographer called Zana. The studio was called The Ragged School. And the sort of background to that picture was the studio wall. It was a really nice studio, actually. It's freezing cold. And his reference was there was a Free, and another kind of brilliant thing. He loved Free. He loved the band Free, loved their music, which I was sort of pleasantly surprised by because I really like Free, but I didn't expect Paul to. Anyway, he referenced a sleeve. There was a Free cover and it was shot very low on the ground. And so that's how we did it. That was our starting point. That was the inspiration from it. An album cover for Free. Yeah. I think it was 4 of them. Was it Paul Kossoff? Yeah. A bit like a lion on the front.
I'm going to have to go and hunt this out. I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's good. I
mean, you're not having to bring in a stylist for Paul Weller, presumably. He's obviously bringing in his own clothes and his own look.
He underplays it. I was going to say he's low key, but I think he's low key. But he underplays it. He underplays himself. He's just himself. I love that. And, he drove himself. There wasn't anybody there. It was me and my assistant, Tony Crowler, at the time, is now a really great photographer. And it was the 3 of us, Paul, me and Tony. That was it. So there's no entourage, no one was in the label. He told me what he wanted to, the starting point for it. That's what we got. And that's that. And I think we did some bit of press, maybe some press pictures as well at the same time. There might be one other picture that was in that. I haven't got that record. I need to get it. It's quite a hard record to get, actually.
Yeah, on the vinyl. I'm still hunting for it on the vinyl, yeah.
Are you? Well, hopefully one day they'll re-release all those records on vinyl. I'm surprised they haven't, actually. That would be great to get an original one. And also that record, it's really lauded by Weller fans. That's quite high up the list of favourite Weller records.
It's a lovely album, although Paul seems to have struggled a bit at that time. I think he was talking about it was a really long album to make. And obviously you got like Robert Kirby's beautiful strings, the Nick Drake connection. It's a terrific album. I don't know if you were seeing him live around that time or anything, but those tours and stuff, that then leads into the acoustic tour where he does the Days of Speed tour and it's just him and a guitar. Were amazing.
Yeah.
Those gigs were incredible.
Yeah, no, it was a really good tour. Yeah, no, it's a great record. Yeah.
Let me ask you about Sonik Kicks. So this comes in 2012. I don't know if there was much of a connection between those days, but let me get the album because this is quite an interesting one. Hold on. So I do have this one on vinyl. Here we go.
The Killer Sleep.
It fits that album brilliantly because that's such a bonkers album that he then performed live the whole album at the Roundhouse, which I was talking to Steve Craddock about the other day. And it's
I remember going to that. It was wonderful. Brilliant. Did you go to the Roundhouse?
Yeah. I was there on the Sunday night. The album hadn't even come out at that point.
Sunday night, that's when I went.
And he did the whole album from start to finish, didn't he? It was like mad.
Yeah. No, I love that record. It's such a good record. I mean, it felt like that record, it was the album packaging and the visual aspect of his records from then on was changing gear. It was becoming more cohesive. He'd set aside tracks for videos. He gave a track to me and various other people. There was one producer that was looking after that. I can't remember how many. I'm going to say 4 or 5 tracks that were given videos. He was commissioning in a way. He was driving that. The producer was handling the nuts and bolts of it, but he was driving that creative process by giving these 5 people, these different videos to do. The sleeve, the psychedelia kind of aspect of it was what we talked about. I can't recall any specifics that we talked about. I was working at that time, I still do actually, with a really great set builder called Andy Tomlinson. We've done lots of music stuff together and lots of shoots together. He's a very talented man. And we came up with an idea of using different coloured fluorescent lights. And we built a room. I had a studio on Kensal Road and we built a sort of room inside Kensal Road. And then we got these strip lights up and started to play with it. And then Paul arrived again without anybody. And I'm saying no stylist. I don't believe there was anybody like looking after the clothes or whatever. I don't think there was a groomer. I don't think I've ever seen him have a groomer. I think we talked about it once. He looked at me like, if looks could kill, that wasn't going to go well. So no, I don't think there's ever been a groomer on any of my shoots with him. Anyway, so he turned up, I would assume, with various outfits, different changes rather. There must have been because we did press on the back of that as well. There's quite a lot of images from that day. And then we started to play around in that space and the light level was low. So that dictated a slow shutter speed. Even at that, so what's that, 2012? I mean, digital was really good. Digital cameras were very good then, but they couldn't really hack, or the ones that I was using, they couldn't really take using a high ISO, which meant that you could use a high shutter speed and low light. So it was like using a very slow ASA film back in the analog days. So you had to use a slow shutter speed. Otherwise, you got if you used a higher ISO, then you got a lot of grain, a lot of noise. Anyway, the sort of lucky aspect of that was we did some test pictures with him in the space, and we were looking at the images on the screen, and we were working out a grade. So we were playing with the light levels and the contrast and all of that. And there was a lot to play with because there's so much color around. It was really fun. Anyway, one of the pictures of him, he'd moved slightly. My initial thing was to sort of discard that image because it was movement. We looked at it and thought, that's quite nice. There's something about that. It's quite nice. If you crunch the image down and you punch the contrast up, it's quite good. So we sort of played with that. And we did one other, and there was that is an accident, that picture. Then we thought, well, that looked at it. He said, that's it. And we're like, okay, it was like 5 frames into the shoot. It's like, maybe we should do some more. And so we did, and obviously it's helpful. He loved it, and he was very confident about the fact that he loved it. And I thought it looked fantastic. But equally, I felt that we should be producing some more images as well. So we sort of tried to give variance around that image, and we never got it actually really as good as that. So that was it. I mean, they were similar ones, but they weren't as good as that. So that was it. So that was like 5 frames into the shoot. And so we got the sleeve. Boom.
That sounds like his recording process where he's like, take 2, that's it. We don't need to go any further than that. It's like done.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it's, I wholly appreciate that. And, often if I'm on shoots, there's many times when you think, well, I've got it. This is it. And that's it. I can just like call it a day now, but you sort of feel that you need to have to go through the process of just extending the day a bit. And we did anyway, but basically there's one pitch you need for a sleeve, and that was it very early on into the session.
It's interesting because we now live in a world where a lot of these album covers are tiny thumbnails on Spotify, Amazon Music.
Well, yes, so exactly.
But actually going through it, I was looking at these the other night, trying to find an album's play, and as I do, going through and there's a foresight of so many of these sleeves. Actually, all these sleeves look great tiny as well. They still work. Like 66, it works in both. Like the vinyl looks beautiful, but actually in the tiny thing, it stands out perfectly in the sea of other albums. In the same way as that one. You're not going to.
It's interesting. I memean, obviously that wasn't around at that time. It might have been just been starting, but certainly previous to that wasn't and I'm sure it still is for Paul as well. It's like, how's a vinyl look? It's certainly not about what's it look on, what's it look like small on a computer. No. That wouldn't be his first consideration. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's sort of testament to the visuals that he has created over the years that they work on in both formats.
The one thing I love about that story you're telling there as well is like a lot of that imagery you could do in post, right? You could have Paul in a studio, take those pictures, and then, Photoshop the fluorescent tubes and all that. But the accident, the mistake, the error, whatever you want to call it, the chance of this blurring, you would never have in a million years have thought to do that in post. So the fact that you created the studio with the fluorescent lights and stuff gave you that album cover, right?
Yeah. I mean, some situations are more successful than others. When you're creating an image, an album cover or whatever, what you're doing is you're creating a situation that you can work within. You're not creating a sort of fait accompli that you can't go anywhere from it. I would imagine it's the same way that he creates music, is it's giving him and his fellow musicians, that ability to be free within that space for things to happen, for accidents to happen, and for conversations to take place, for changes to be made, for development to happen, So, I mean, that's kind of what we did with that. We're making that room with Andy, is we created the start of something, and then it would find its form and find its feet on the day. If you haven't got anywhere to go, then that's a bit terrifying. If it is just a background and a chair and you're like, okay, is that it? Right. Okay. You want to create some flexibility. That's the word I was looking for. Some flexibility, to create a conversation and it's more enjoyable for everybody, for me, for Paul,
let's talk Saturns Pattern. So 2015, that's the next album. Yes. Paul was so prolific. Yeah. I mean, these albums are coming around even more frequently now, actually thinking about it. But this was, an image on the cover linked to the Saturns Pattern thing, but lots of beautiful inside imagery again. And Paul looking so cool in those shots. I love the hair, everything about him looks the dog's bollocks. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was great. We did it in Sunbeam Studios in Notting Hill, which is a studio that I've used a lot. And I didn't work with Andy on that, set builder on that, actually. I worked with a lady, really great set builder called Kieran, and she's brilliant. And we came up with sort of various situations, projections. I think, again, there was quite a lot of psychedelia. The psychedelic sort of vibe was running through it. And I don't think the cover for that record had been established. I don't believe it had been established. I certainly wasn't shown it. The title was. So we used some light to create that sort of psychedelic kind of flair with him, which felt quite Saturns Pattern-y, I guess. The blue flare. So it worked. Yeah, it worked. It all sort of fitted.
It feels every time we get a new album from Paul, he wants to take it in a different direction. He wants to do something new without repeating old ground. I think in 22 Dreams, Wake Up the Nation, Sonik Kicks almost as a kind of trilogy in a way, because he was working with Simon Dye. There was a certain kind of, pushing the envelope. But Saturns Pattern is almost back to more traditional songwriting, the band live in the room type approach, rather than the Pro Tools cut and paste of an album. It's a beautiful album. But the imagery goes back with that as well, I think, where it's kind of more classic Weller. The tailoring in a way as well from Paul is looking very classy. It all ties in his head, doesn't it?
You certainly go in with a strong idea about what he wants to wear. I remember there was a lot of changes in that, and that, that beautiful suit. I know one of the sort of black and white one where he's holding a cigarette, and that was like he really wanted a real classy Bailey-esque black and white of him. And that was a bit of a step away from what we were doing downstairs. I was saying downstairs because it was the studios there was like a mezzanine that we set up to do the black and white portraits. There was a lighting setup that we set up in the background that was away from the main sets. That was a kind of a sort of world away from the sort of psychedelic stuff that we were working on downstairs. Yeah, I love those pictures. I'm proud of all the stuff that I've done with Paul.
He loves a shot fag in hand as well, doesn't he?
He loves fag.
Well, yeah, Claire has said that's the only vice that he still can't give up, having tried everything. But
I know, I'm jealous that he's still smoking.
That's not a phrase I've ever heard anybody say.
No. He makes it look so cool, doesn't he?
I know, there is that, doesn't it?
Now let's talk Noel Gallagher and Paul Weller. This was end of 1999, this shoot. The Observer magazine, October, cover shoot for this. Gallagher and Weller talking about new labour, new music, and new dads.
Yes. And I can't recall the background to that, actually. Dan, you'll have to remind me Wheeler's End Studios, that was it. So it's Wheeler's End Studios. And I can't recall the background to why it was the two of them.
No, I was trying to work this out as well.
No,
find the article, but because they weren't doing anything together particularly.
No, they were good friends, but they weren't. I can't remember why we did it. Why? Anyway, but I think that Oasis were there. Oasis were recording in Wheeler's End. There was like psychedelic artwork of the Beatles, like Avedon prints of the those fantastic solarized pictures of the Beatles, prints of those hanging. Well, I think they were prints for their originals. It'd be worth a fortune. But anyway, they were hanging around the studio. So it looked like they'd been ensconced there for a while. And I should remember, but I can't, why we photographed Paul there. But we did, and it was good fun. I remember Paul wearing a big sheepskin coat, and there were fun pictures of the two of them in the studio. Yeah, I can't recall, Dan, what the idea was behind that. But it was lovely. It was a really nice day to see them together.
I've spoken to Noel for the podcast, the book. It's, they've obviously got this amazing connection between the two of them. Feels like a kind of deep friendship as much as anything else now.
Big friendship, big respect. Yeah, absolutely. I do remember texting Noel, and I think it was around Sonik Kicks time, texting him and asking him how he saw Paul, because we were doing this. I said, the wording of it was like, we're doing this album cover. How do you see him? How do you see him? He came back with like elegant black suit, black and white, So yeah, which we didn't do. We ignored that and did what we wanted to do.
No, I was like, why is he wasting my time?
Yes, exactly.
It is interesting to see how Noel looks up to Paul as a musician, as an artist, and a lot to learn from him, I guess.
He's just kept it all really simple, actually. So he drives himself to his shoots, doesn't have a flash car. When he was doing Heliocentric, he had a camper van. If he wants to get his hair cut, he'll go and get his hair cut. It's not a drama. If he wants to go and buy, you might get a stylist to go and do it. He'll go and do it himself. It's not a drama. And it's not like he's adverse to people suggesting. He's just got a very clear view about how he wants to go about things and how he sees things and how he obviously hears things.
You could make that type of job, or his place in the music business really complex and complicated and whatever, right? Like a lot of them probably have.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of like people like him, the way that he goes about his life, his world, and Robert Plant is very similar, I think, in a way. He doesn't let his huge success kind of become this great big elephant that's, they're just it's ridiculous. It's a meaningless phrase, but they're very normal. He just keeps it very simple, very honest. He's authentic, and I'm sure Liam and Noel are all looking at the way that he goes about things, hopefully, and going, that's the way to do it. And it's also testament to, like Claire Moon still with him and all those people that have been with him for years.
Now, Julian, at the beginning of this podcast, I gave a little tease and I said that there was one image I really wanted to talk about. I mean, do you know what the image is? You must know what the image is.
Well, I've got two in my mind, but I'm leaning towards the one that I'm probably thinking that you're thinking of.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. We have just announced the exciting news. Paul Weller, Dancing Through the Fire, the authorized oral history written by Dan Jennings, is actually going to be published this September as an actual book, for Christ's sake. That's ridiculous on its own. But here we are. The image, the front image, this beautiful image that we chose is yours.
Well, Dan, I'm going to say congratulations to you, because that's a fantastic thing to have got the book out there.
Well, it almost pushed me over the edge at times, I'll be honest with you. Much like I imagine with Paul and the making of an album sometimes. It's some of these things are bloody hard work, right? But
yeah. Well, you've done it. You've done it.
It's delivered. It's no going back now, my friend. No going back now. Let's talk about this image, though. So this beautiful image on the front cover that we selected. And I love the shot of Paul. He always looks cool as heck. But there's not many people that you would select an image of to put on the front cover of a book where they're just wearing a jumper and Paul looks great. Right?
Well, yeah. He does give a good jumper, I've got to be honest.
So how would you describe the image? Because we've got these beautiful colours in the background, these greens and these purples.
Well,
talk me through this.
It would have been after we did the Sonik Kicks sleeve campaign. And that particular image was for an Italian magazine that I worked for lots over the years called Di La Repubblica, which is a Milan-based magazine, Italian magazine. And they got wind of the fact that I'd been working on this project, the Sonik Kicks project, and they wanted to do a feature on Paul. And so we did a shoot in my old studio in Kensal Road. So I guess the colours, I really love that picture, actually. And I think he looks fantastic in it. And as you say, it's really, I mean, what he's wearing is very simple, but he can really carry a simple sweater and he looks great and his hair's looking fab as well.
The Barney is well under control, isn't it?
It really is well under control.
It looks great.
Well under control.
I don't know what you'd call that cut. What would you call that cut? I'm trying to think. We've got the bits at the sides. You're a brave
man if you want to give that a name.
We've got like the little Dalmatian ears at the sides, but it's not the big old full-on 22 Dreams job.
No, he looks great. He looks fantastic. And yeah, we did it. So I think the colours for that probably was a bit of a follow-on from what we were doing with Sonik Kicks. So it was that sort of slightly sort of psychedelic feel that we were running through with the images for the albums. I guess it was just a sort of we were following on a vibe really into that. But yeah, I love it. It's great. It's really it's really fun. It was really quick. It was I remember it well, and it was really speedy shoot, and we had it all pretty much set up before we came in one afternoon. So yeah, it was a very short period of an afternoon in Kensal Road.
So in that shoot, you would have taken lots of pictures with that background and him in different positions and some maybe even smiling and things like that, right? How would you nail it? I've seen a couple
in easy
history. There are some.
How would you go about selecting that? Is that a you thing? Is that working?
Well, I think, to be honest, actually, I wouldn't have taken that many. I mean, I don't take that many pictures. It would have been something I'd have been thinking about, and I would have probably shown Paul some test images that we'd done prior to him arriving, and we'd have got on with it. I mean, I'm really conscious of not taking a lot of time with him over taking a picture. So it would have been pretty short and sweet. I actually can't remember what the criteria for the usage would have been, but I'm guessing, it was an interview within the magazine. I don't think it was a cover. It wouldn't have been.
No, I've not seen it. It's not really been used much, which was also a key thing.
It hasn't.
For us as well.
It hasn't. So I think it would have been a turn and a spread. Yeah, I mean, that was the resulting image. Double page spread version of it and an upright. I don't think it wouldn't have been a lot. I wouldn't have taken a lot of frames. Oh, wow. The editing would have been pretty concise. And you sort of know when you, like we were talking about with the Sonik Kicks sleeve, it's the way that we were working was very organic. And it, when we got it right. And that was that. And that we're not going to sort of labor it if we felt we've got it. Yeah, pretty efficient in that way.
Look, this is me in no way comparing myself to Paul and creating a masterpiece like he does with his albums and things like, 23 Dreams, Sonik Kicks and stuff. But there is a buzz around having your cover on an image of an album. How will it feel? So we're counting down to the book, let's say the 11th of September when we're published. This is going to be everywhere, Waterstones, Asda, everywhere that sells books. Are you going to get the same buzz?
Yeah, absolutely. I love seeing my imagery out and about. It's great. And it would be thrilling to see that particular image of Paul being used in that context and on the cover of your wonderful book. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. So yeah.
Have you been on the cover of a book before?
I have done. You're going to ask me what, but yes,
there's more that I was going to ask you. Do you then, when you're in Waterstones, you try and find it and then put it to the front of the shelf and things like that?
No, I don't.
Is that frowned upon? I'm trying to work it out.
But I've got a sneaky suspicion you might.
We might do a book tour on the day. Me and my wife were like, we should go in all the bookshops and just put it. Although you get there and it's not in stock.
I don't think you'll need to, Dan. I think they'll be front and centre anyway. I don't think they'll be tucked away at the back of Waterstones or Asda or wherever else it ends up being sold.
All good bookshops.
Exactly. And all the lovely independent bookshops.
Exactly. Exactly.
They're the one.
Well, look, man, thank you for letting us have the conversation around the image and all that.
Dan, my absolute pleasure. Congratulations again. They're tricky things to give birth to. So it's a wonderful thing you've done. Beautiful.
This has been such a delight. One final question for you. You're allowed one Paul Weller song for the rest of your life. It can be the Jam, the Style Council, or solo. What would you go with?
Oh my God. Anything from Wildwood, anything from Sonik Kicks.
It's interesting because the fact they played that album from start to finish, like Steve Craddock was like, it's nuts. Like opening any set with Green, it's just it's just bonkers, but brilliant.
Yeah. Great night. It was. I remember it well. It was really fun.
This has been such a delight. Thanks for your time, man.
Dan,
really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. All right, mate. Take care.
My thanks once again to Julian Broad for joining me on the podcast. Not only that, for letting us use his incredible imagery on my book. This is insane. Paul Weller, Dancing Through the Fire. The authorized oral history is available for pre-order now. It'll be published this September on Constable from Little Brown. So get into your favorite store, whether it be Amazon's, Waterstones, WH Smith, bookstore.org, your local independent bookstore. Pop in and say hello. Our chums at Rough Trade, recordstore.co.uk, Norman, Resident, Stranger Than Paradise, and Strip Joint Vinyl. Head online, paulwellerfanpodcast.com to find out more. And if you've already ordered that, but fancy supporting the podcast anyway, you can buy a virtual coffee. Just head into my store, paulwellerfanpodcast.com. Now, I should also mention to make sure you follow the official channels. You'll see little bits and pieces on there. It's ramping up right now. Somebody mentioned a new font yesterday. How exciting. Hey, look, I'm sworn to secrecy, but just keep an eye on the channels. Exciting news to come. And when we can talk about it on the podcast, we'll make sure we do that as well. So follow, subscribe, wherever you get yours, Apple, Spotify, and more. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.